So, how many of you know a little bit about me? Raise your hand if you know a little bit about me. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much.
Could you clip this on your shirt?
Okay, I'm not going to go too much into my background. I'll probably touch on it as I answer questions because I really want to have a dialogue with you. I really don't want to come up here and just kind of share with you what I'm thinking. But at the end of the day, look, I will tell you that I am running for governor, but more importantly, I'm applying for a job. And I want to work for you. And so your job is to interview me. Your job is to ask questions as to who am I, what do I think about where we're going. Because one of the things that I've noticed about what we do here in our nation is we believe that the only thing we need to do is vote. And we elect people. And then we tell them, think about this for a minute. We elect someone, and then we tell them, hey, we'll see you in 4 years. I'll give you your first evaluation in 4 years. Hope you don't bankrupt the company or the state. But in the meantime, just let me live my life and I'll see you in 4 years, which I think we probably need to shift that around because when we no longer pay attention to what's happening every day or every month in our state, we find ourselves waking up and saying, what kind of legislation just got passed? What is going on here? And so I'm telling you that, I'm running because I truly believe that it's time for us to take back our state. I believe that, it's time for the people to stop bowing down to the government, and it's time for the government to start bowing down to the people. Because that's the way it was designed, and that's the way we keep our freedoms and our liberties. And right now, everything that I see, everything that I'm witnessing, I'm seeing more and more of our liberties being taken away. And more importantly, I'm feeling like Colorado is becoming a distant memory, and we're becoming more and more like California. It seems like every time we turn around, there's something more that they're taking away from us, and they're not listening to the voice of the people. Virginia was a good example of what happens when people recognize that they can make a difference, and they go to the polls. And while a lot of people thought never will Virginia become red, it clearly showed that the voice of the people can really win the day. Now, there are some differences in Virginia that we don't have here in Colorado, and that is they have a closed primary. They don't have an open primary. They don't do mail-in ballots. They have polling places still. So they still run their elections the way I believe all elections should be run. And as governor, I'm going to make sure that we focus on eliminating the mail-in ballot because I don't think it's the right thing for us to be doing. And the mail-in ballot is probably the one way that you can truly cause some issues in the election results.
I'm glad you said that, and I agree with you. But what can you do as governor of Colorado? How do you have the power to do that?
So here's what I would do, right? A lot of people forget that the governor has two distinct ways to exercise power or authority, okay, whatever you want to call it. First of all, the governor is the CEO of the state. So he manages all the department heads. There are 16 cabinet members, and then under the governor's office, there's 9 individual offices. But what I also have is the power of influence, is the podium. So the way we would do that is I would encourage everyone that we need to sign a petition, we need to change the Constitution of Colorado, and we need to eliminate the mail ballot. And so I will lead the discussion. I don't have the power to the stroke of a pen to change things.
Right. What I remember is they pushed that through the legislature.
Right. But we can, the people can, bypass the legislature. We don't need them, okay?
How do you do that?
By doing a petition and putting it on the ballot,
Okay.
right?
So it would be a constitutional amendment?
Yeah. To the Colorado Constitution. So that's how we get people to understand. Worst thing that could happen from that, there's more dialogue about it, right? Is why would we want to get rid of the mail ballot? Why do we want to go back to the polling places? Why are we going to do this, right? And this is where we can have some real candid conversation about ballot harvesting, about how do you get 4 ballots to the same household when only one person lives there.
Could you do any kind of executive order that would at least require somebody to provide identification when they went in to turn their ballot in, so somebody couldn't bring in their husband or their wife's ballot. Do you believe that you would have the power to do something like that?
You know, my gut tells me that I wouldn't have that power because the Secretary of State, which is elected by the people, right, is responsible for the state elections. Okay? But we can look at what do we do with the county officials. Let me tell you this. The Secretary of State's office is responsible for announcing and collecting the votes. Okay? But they don't oversee the election process. The people that oversee the election process is the county clerk in your county, okay? So if you don't want to see a Dominion machine used in Jefferson County, you just ensure that the clerk and recorder understands that you don't want them to use it. They can do the hand counting ballot. They can do all those things. And that's why every county has their clerk and recorder elected as an official. And their main job is to oversee the elections. But this is where we have that dialogue, right? That we can say, hey, what is wrong in having a ID to show that if you are carrying your wife's ballot in, you know, that you're the only one that can carry it, you know? Because this is where we run into, sometimes you'll hear this, and it's true, you know? You don't hear about it in the news, but if you talk to people, they find ballots, you know, dumped in the dumpster or dumped in a ditch. Right? Because they are concerned about what that ballot is going to say. But election integrity, I'm going to tell you, don't you dare drink the Kool-Aid that Colorado is a gold standard. We're not the gold standard. Amen. By any stretch of the imagination, okay? So when they tell you that we're the gold standard, I'm going to tell you that's what you need to ask, is like, why are you saying that? Here's the other thing I was talking to a gentleman earlier about how do you trust parties? Right? How do you trust either one? And I'm going to tell you that human nature, you will always, if you want to find the character of a person, give them power. And then you really find out what they're made of. And so not only do we have good eggs and bad eggs in the Republican basket, we have good eggs and bad eggs in the Democrat basket. You know, how many of you know who first introduced Dominion into the state of Colorado? Do you guys know who did that?
Was it Walker Stapleton?
Actually, it was Scott Gessler. Scott Gessler under the Secretary of State's office, and he is a Republican. He's the first one that introduced it. The one that solidified it to come into the state was Wayne Williams, another Republican of the Secretary of State's office. So if you really want to put the blame on someone and say, who brought Dominion into the state of Colorado? It was the Republican elected officials. It wasn't a Democrat, okay? And so we have to be honest about what happened and what transpired. You know, what does that mean? That means that a lot of people are concerned, right, about what's going on. If you haven't been following what's going on in Mesa County, Grand Junction.
I heard they got raided by the FBI today.
Peters just got raided by the FBI.
Yeah, okay? And if you read it, and I would encourage you, do your own research. It's not hard to find good information. Here's what's happened, okay? She did exactly what she was supposed to do, and that is protect the integrity of the records of the election. You're supposed to protect them for 25 months, okay? Well, Dominion and the Secretary of State's office said, we're going to upgrade the Dominion machine, right? And when they do that, they erase all records inside of the system. So they're in violation of the state statutes of protecting that integrity of that information. You know, well, Tina Peters is trying to do a lawsuit. Do you guys know who appoints the judges in Colorado? But do you know which person does it? It's the governor. The governor appoints the judges. Exactly. Right. So when you look at, you know, what is going on with our judicial system, right? Why aren't we able to actually do these types of things? There's a lot that gets tied to this. I'm going to tell you this, and I firmly believe this right now. Our legislative body is passing bills that they know are not constitutional. But here's their logic. We're going to pass it. we're going to exercise it until someone challenges it in court. And when they challenge it in court, it's going to take 2 to 3 years before there's a judgment on that. In the meantime, it's law.
Well, that's the issue with like red light cameras and speed cameras.
Yeah.
Okay, they passed those in Colorado. Of course, they've been, they passed in other states, but somebody, took it to court and the judge tossed them out. So you don't have it in some states for that reason. Colorado continues.
Exactly.
In that vein.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't meet that whole, like if you get a speed camera ticket or you get a stoplight ticket or whatever, you don't face your accuser in court. So it doesn't pass
Right.
the constitutional muster.
Right, exactly.
But they prey on people's income, just pay them. And
Yeah. And so they've learned that, we can pass whatever law we want to pass, right? Until it gets challenged in court. And then when they lose, they're like, well, okay, for 3 years we had it, right? And so they're trying to change the way we look at things. So, as I look at Colorado, and I look at what some of the challenges that I believe the state's facing, the first one is education, okay? I believe the schools have really gone rogue on us, and there is a cultural tug-of-war that's happening right now with our public school system and our parents, because parents believe in parents' rights, and they believe that they should know what their children are being taught. And yet then you have the public school system that says, you don't need to worry about what we're teaching your kids. You just need to send your kids, and then we'll send them home to you, right? And that's that tug of war. And so I'm a strong believer in school choice. I'm a strong believer in vouchers, okay? Vouchers, I believe, will give more authority to the parents to be able to decide where they want to send their kids. And the difference between a voucher and school choice is that you take money away from the school district when you have a voucher. And so when you have that in your pocket, they start listening because everybody wants the money to be able to fulfill whatever it is they're going to do. And so vouchers are very important. Now, how are we going to get vouchers in Colorado? We got to change the Constitution, because everything's embedded either in legislation or in the Constitution itself.
So are you saying that you don't think you can get this isn't meant to
No.
sound as bad, but do you not think that the State House and Senate will ever get to the point where we could pass legislation? That
No.
The whole thing is going to have
Yep.
to be done through the constitutional
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. I hope I'm wrong, but no. Right now I'm telling you, I don't see the legislature coming together and trying to do something for the greater good of everybody. I don't see them doing it, okay? Now, I'll be happy if I'm wrong because it makes life a lot easier for all of us, right? But history has shown that that's not the way it works because everybody's in control of power, right? And so we got to get the people to understand that ultimately, if you don't like what's going on, you can circumvent those legislative bodies. It takes a little work, but hey, you know what? When you gather the signatures, you're out there meeting your neighbors and your friends, and then it becomes a statewide issue. It becomes a national issue as to why is Colorado doing this, right? And then we have a platform by which we can do that. So I'm also looking to bring vocational training back into the schools because not everybody's going to go to college. Not everybody can afford to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college, right? But you can make good money. You can make good money being a plumber or electrician or a drywaller or a painter. There was a time in America where we used to tell our kids, just be proud and grateful that you have a job. Do it right, work hard, and you'll be able to provide for your family. And you don't have to stay in that job forever if you don't want to, right? Now we tell our kids that, you got to get a 4-year degree and a piece of paper is going to define who you are and what you're capable of doing. I think as we go back to say, whether you choose to go to college or not, that's entirely up to you. But do not lose hope that you can't feel that you can't be successful if you don't have a college degree. So bringing back vocational training. I was talking to some union leaders this past Saturday morning. Now think about that for a minute. A Republican candidate talking to union leaders, pipe fitters, electricians, roofers, and they invited me to come. And so they're telling me, look, we're done with this governor we need you to win the nomination so that we can get you through the general. And I'm here to tell you, my biggest challenge is not the general election. My biggest challenge is the primary. Because when I become the nominee for the Republican Party, I'm going to be your next governor. And let me tell you what's going to happen. When I become the nominee for the Republican Party in the state of Colorado for the governorship in 2022, this is going to become a national election. Why? Because you have the first governor that's seeking re-election that's gay, also running against a Hispanic Republican that is really going to be David and Goliath, because he's worth $600 million. You guys read about his taxes, right? Or the lack of paying taxes?
We won't release his, but he tried to get Trump to do it.
Right. So it's going to become a national election, because people are going to say, hey, we got to see how this works. Colorado is the petri dish for all of America. We're the first ones that try things. We're the first ones to legalize marijuana, right? And once we said yes, all of a sudden the other states said, hey, we need to do this.
Not before it ruined ours.
Yep, exactly. Look, and these are the challenges, right, that we have to face, is that when we make these decisions, we got to be wise about what it means. We got to have visionary glasses. And here's the thing. We're going to make Colorado a 10th Amendment state, not a sanctuary state. And we've done this before with marijuana. So, states' rights is what trumps the national government. And when we decided that we wanted marijuana to be legalized in Colorado, we basically told the national government, we don't care what your laws say, because it's still illegal in the federal government. And you cannot, that's why the marijuana industry in Colorado is a cash business. They cannot make any deposits in any bank.
They can use credit unions.
Well, I don't know about that one, but okay.
They kind of developed a little bit of a reach around. They have like a state chartered bank.
Okay.
Where they can do some banking with cash.
Right.
No, they can't use any.
No, because all the licenses, right, are controlled by the federal government.
Uses the Federal Reserve.
Right. So we can do this. The other thing is, I'm a small business. I'm the former director of the United States Small Business Administration here in Colorado. So for 7 years, I was the voice and face of small business. I understand completely what he did when the governor, with a stroke of the pen, shut down over 600,000 small business owners overnight, what he did. And when he's saying I was saving lives, I'm here to tell you he was destroying families. He was destroying families, and he was destroying the future of a lot of Coloradans. And even now, it's interesting. I just saw an article today where the governor is saying, even though we're the hot spot of COVID-19 in the country today, he is not going to mandate masks. And he's saying that now he's saying masks don't really stop the spread.
No kidding.
But because his popularity numbers are going down, and he's up for re-election, right? And he's hoping we forget what happened over the last couple of years. So small business is a major issue, okay? The other thing that we need to do is make sure that we spend our money wisely, okay? Right now, Colorado has proven, the records show that Colorado has received $63 billion. $63 billion ever since COVID came online, okay? Well, good question, right? And that's what we need to ask. Where is this money and how are you spending it? Okay? But $63 billion, what that tells you is that he's trying to say the economy of Colorado is doing well. But if you hadn't gotten that $63 billion, where would we be today? Right? So we have to ask these tough questions. Look, folks, it's very important for you to make sure you interview all the candidates, because there's a number of us that are trying to become the governor for the state of Colorado. And so it's not a popularity contest. This is about who can actually do the job. So if you're familiar with the town of Parker, how many of you are familiar with the town of Parker? Okay. I was mayor in the town of Parker, I was elected at the age of 27. I was the youngest mayor elected in the state at the time, and I was a strong mayor, which meant not only was I the mayor, but I was the city manager simultaneously. So all the department heads reported directly to me. So I understand water, yeah, air quality and all that type of stuff. So I'm gonna shut it down. You know, I'll answer one question because I think it's important for me to at least answer one question. But if you hear anything or if you've heard of anything that you say, you know what, I would like to see Greg be the nominee, then I would encourage you to go to my website, lopez2022.com, make a contribution. There's a clipboard going around, but it is about us making sure that we get Colorado back. You know, and that's what it's all about, folks. And if we can do this, our finest hour is in the horizon. Don't you dare give up on Colorado, because at the end of the day, we have nowhere else to go, because this is a cancer that's spreading. So let's just put it out here for all of us.
So even before you can get to the governor's mansion, you've got to jump through the hoops of the Dominion mail-in voting corrupt Colorado system. What is the strategy? Because Virginia clearly had a strategy going into that governorship.
Mhm.
The Republican Party, shocker, actually had people turning up for poll watching everywhere. Shocker, they actually had lawyers on standby that
Right.
anyone in the state could actually call a legal team and get their clarity on what the actual voting rules in the state were.
Right.
And they actually took it seriously. I have no hope that Colorado GOP could muster anything like that. How do you get through a Dominion voting system and mail-in voting?
There's one caveat with the Dominion. Not every county in Colorado uses Dominion.
Right.
I mean, like Scott, okay, in defense of Scott Gessler and some of the previous
Right.
Republicans, they just, of course, this was prior to how Dominion was used. We think fraudulently to maybe make, you know, to affect the outcome in some certain states. But what Scott allowed for was allow Dominion to be used by the county clerks, but not every county in Colorado uses Dominion. Just wanted to clarify.
No, you're right, and that's a good
It's not
clarification.
like it's a central,
Look,
it's like Dominion is a central.
last I heard, out of the 64 counties in the state of Colorado,
Because he did
Right.
testify, you know.
right, only three out of 64 counties do not use Dominion. One is Douglas County, one is Garfield County, and I think the third one that just surfaced, I think is Routt County. Okay, but yes, out of the 64 counties across the state, only 3 do not use the Dominion machine.
But could the GOP in this, what is the strategy to get around, I think the GOP in this state is.
I'm going to tell you that I don't believe there is a strategy.
Yeah.
At least I haven't heard of one. You
It's a
know,
little more difficult with the mail-in ballot.
it is.
Because in Virginia, you had a cut and dry situation where polling places,
Right.
they could do a traditional style election.
Right.
That could be monitored properly. Sure. With the mail-in balloting, it's loosey-goosey.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with this, okay? Because no one knows, I don't have a crystal ball like anybody else does, but I will tell you this. If you know nothing about politics and you know nothing about the candidates, and you were to put my picture next to Jared Polis's picture and ask the question, who's the Democrat? I think I'm going to get a lot of votes from the other side, okay? Which they're, by the way, are conservative anyway. You know, they believe the way we believe. Folks, my name is Greg Lopez. I'm going to be your next governor. Thank you very much.